What's going on, guys? It's been a while since we've done some like rack store cheapies, so I'm gonna put you guys on game to a fragrance that you might not see all too often, but if you do and you're into cheapies, snatch that thing up. Let's go for that ride.
Okay, doing it for two. I watch that head move side to side as I let this in into the room. You were on time, let's connect minds. Trying to get into a mood. We gon' be fine. Close up the blinds, no rush. Finish it.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Scent Bubble. I am your host for the evening. Okay, so been a while since we've done some rack store cheapies. Okay, what are we talking about for those of you who are new to the channel? Okay, we've got Ross, Nordstrom Rack, Marshalls. I think I already said Ross, TJ Maxx, Burlington. Those are the main ones. We got a couple of other ones in there that you can get away with getting some rack story type of finds, but those are the main ones. And this one, I believe you could find mainly at TJ Maxx because each rack store is kind of different. Ross, you're going to normally get mostly designer scents. TJ Maxx, you're going to actually get cheapies that are laid out on the shelf depending on which one you get, and you could actually pick them up and spray them. They're all kind of laid out in the open, but then they also have like an actual glass tower that carries designer, cheapies, clones, and niche fragrances as of late. I've seen a lot of videos popping up with like Parfums de Marley and Creed and stuff like that popping up. Don't tell Suits and Scents that. Anyways, yeah, so and then you got Burlington, which has the highest carrier of clone fragrances these days, and it feels like every week that goes by, they're starting to carry more and more and more and more clone fragrances. Things like Afnan, Latafa, Armaf, and they carry clones and designers mostly. And then your places like Marshall, they also have a lot of fragrances out that you can pre-spray, a lot of cheapies, and then mostly designers behind their main rack. TJ Maxx, Nordstrom Rack carries mostly designers, but they're very selective depending on what kind that you go to. Anyways, this one I found at TJ Maxx. You could probably find it at Marshalls or TJ Maxx, and it's actually an eau de cologne. My label is jacked up, so bear with me. But this is True Fragrance Bourbon Cure. And in a nutshell, this is a vetiver, cedar, and ginger. And it says that on here. Eau de cologne, smoked vetiver, cedar, and spiked ginger. 100 ml. I probably got this fragrance, I want to say, for like 11 bucks. And I remember early on in my cheapie journey, I haven't killed much of this bottle because when I acquired it, I was well into my fragrance journey in such a way where this would have been an easy fragrance to kind of pass on if you had other alternatives. But man, let me just say this for the record. This was easily a fragrance that when I first came across it, it blew me away at just like, because typically when you go to a cheapie store, you're hoping to find kind of two categories of fragrance, maybe three. You're mainly looking for a cheapy, heavy utility fragrance. Blind grab, put it on during the day, casual, playful, fresh, and that's it. If you can find something like that in a rack store that's out in the open, loose, you're happy. You know, aquatic, ginger, vetiver fragrance, blue fragrance, you're sitting pretty. And that's where this kind of falls into. Another fragrance you might find is a romantic fragrance. You might find a sweeter fragrance that's more for the date night or romantic, where you're like, man, that actually could kind of go in the date night or late night setting. And then the other fragrance that you might find oftentimes is like either something very unique or a work fragrance, which the utility everyday fragrance can cover as well. This was a fragrance where I was like, man, from first sniff, it didn't smell synthetic. It had my favorite note of vetiver in it, but this isn't a challenging vetiver at all. This is a mass appealing vetiver because it's mostly a spiked ginger and cedar based fragrance. So woods, effervescent, ginger. So it's got a very kind of cedary, citric, gingery feel, almost, dare I say, in the veins of like, there's parts of it that feel imagination-esque, and ignore the blasphemy of that statement, but imagination-esque in its fresh kind of watery citrus. And then parts of it feel very like Bleu de Chanel, where it's got like a classical, like modern masculine fresh citrus scent. So it's got kind of the aquatic, exotic citrus feel and the classy citrus on woods feel as well. Smoked vetiver, cedar, and ginger. That's all it is, guys. Now, you would think with an eau de cologne, you might have to question performance, which at fragrances at this level, you absolutely got to question performance. But man, guys, when I tell you the dry down feels very much Bleu de Chanel-ish with no synthetics at all, man, I mean it. And for the purposes of this video, I might need to give this some daily wearing, but I'm halfway tempted to add it to my clones ebook, which I haven't mentioned to the public yet. I am making an S tier clones ebook that will highlight some of my most prized clone fragrances. I'm not going to put, it's not meant to be a Rolodex of every clone you can get under the sun. It's, in my experience with messing with clones, dupes, and inspireds, what are the best of the best. And it's going to be a document that's constantly uploaded, and it's only going to be available to a certain tier of individual on my channel. I'm going to share the information from it because I believe it's free information. But in terms of how you can get a snapshot, beautiful graphic to keep of it in an ebook format that I plan on adding to with a bunch of other different types of written content, that'll be for special people who follow me. But nonetheless, I mentioned all that to just say that this borders as almost a valid street level Bleu de Chanel clone in a lot of ways. In a way that even feels fresher than Club de Nuit Iconic. Not as much performance. Obviously, the selling point to Iconic is that it's about 85% close, but it peaks, it outperforms Bleu de Chanel. But in terms of the freshness and the liveliness, man, this competes and has a leg up in some regards. Again, it's not the moon and the stars, but for a $10 fragrance, 100 ml, guys, this will easily sit as one of the most staple, most used fragrances in your collection. Again, I don't know how this got ripped off. It's hard to find. I see somebody selling this on eBay right now for $110. Can you believe it? That's how kind of mysteriously sought after this fragrance is. It's hard to find. You will only find it in a TJ Maxx or a Marshall's or online from something like an eBay. But if you find it, it won't be more than about $15 for 100 ml, and it is probably one of the best, top 3 best dupe. And I don't even know if you can call this a dupe, because I don't know if it's a dupe of anything, even though I'm leaning towards calling it a Bleu de Chanel clone. I've known no type of online content claiming that this is a clone of anything. It's just a cheap little house that probably doesn't specialize in fragrances only, so it's probably more of a designer cheapie level fragrance. And man, guys, this is an amazing utility fragrance. Again, when I say best of the best in terms of rack store cheapies, we're not talking density of fragrance or whatever. We're talking about a non-synthetic, decent performing, excellent level fragrance that can compete with most of your designers. And again, because to me, I get elements of kind of this imagination vibe, but not as much fruits, or not, not as much fruit and citrus, you know what I'm saying? But it gets me in that arena of aquatic citruses, but then the scale down masculinity, classy modernness of the vetiver and the cedar just makes it an absolute staple. Out of the Marshalls, TJ Maxx, open floor pickups that are all under $20, this is among easily top 3 that I've ever come across. It ties with fragrances like the Privé Illusion Intense, which was an insane like $13 Dior Homme Intense clone. It ties with things like I think it was Together with You or Together with You Intensely, which was or like Better with You or Better with You Intensely. I forget what the name was, but you guys know what I'm talking about. It's those Armani Stronger with You knockoffs. But that fragrance, there's some other fragrances. Definitely check out Goldie on YouTube to see a lot of amazing finds. Because I can think of probably like 10 or 15 incredible finds at the TJ Maxx Ross level. But again, this is among one of the greats. So try to find it. It's a little bit rare. It's everyday wear, ageless masculine fragrance. I would call it upscale casual that can dress down. I don't think it can really go into semi-formal category without just making you look clean. Like it's not going to give you an edge in date night. It's not going to give you an edge in nightlife or whatever, but you certainly will smell better with this fragrance on rather than just going with a bar soap vibe. It'll definitely enhance perception on you. Again, it's not going to be a circumstantial fragrance to an event or a situation. It's more of just a blind grab. I will smell good when I go outside. I will smell like I have a designer fragrance on, and I will have not spent any money for it. Again, don't let the eau de cologne disrupt you. It's got solid performance. Like with a fragrance like this, you put 10 sprays on and you let it do its thing. You might get 4 hours, 6 hours, maybe 8 if God blesses you that day. You know what I'm saying? And you just let that thing rock. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments if you've tried this fragrance. Again, this is True Fragrance. That's just TRU. True Fragrance Bourbon Cure. Don't really know why they put bourbon. Maybe it's because of the whole smoked vetiver aspect and the cedar, but who knows? Bourbon Cure Eau de Cologne, and it says it has smoked vetiver, cedar, and spiked ginger in it. 100 ml, insanely cheap. I don't think of any alternatives when you're that cheap of a price point. I think I've answered everything for you guys. It's really nice. I apologize to those of you who I described this fragrance as being likened to Bleu de Chanel in Imagination. Bleu de Chanel is not as much of a stretch as Imagination, but again, it has a fresh, aquatic, citric spike to it. I think Imagination even has ginger in it, or definitely citrus, but it takes you in that direction. You know what I'm saying? As being a respectable designer level fragrance, and it's reminiscent of those two fragrances to my nose. Again, hope you guys have a blessed rest of your week. All my rack store lovers out there, there are still fragrances at the rack store level. I don't care where you are in your journey, that can be respected, that can be worn. And the biggest takeaway from this is that if you don't have a lot of money or you don't have a lot of time to get a lot of fragrances, or it's just not that big of a deal to you, you just need something to have. Rack stores still can fulfill a utilitarian need and sometimes can wow you with the things they can produce for under the $15 price point. And many people can agree. I'm sure everybody has a story who's been open-minded to shopping at one of those 5 rack stores, has a story about a fragrance that absolutely blew them away. Unfortunately, in this climate, you want to be able to try those fragrances before you buy them, and you also don't want to have to spend like $5 to $8 getting a decant of a fragrance that you're pretty much halfway into paying for the actual fragrance. But what's great about Marshalls and TJ Maxx in particular is they have an open display where you could just spray these fragrances out in the air. So that part of it's really nice. And there are still great fragrances out there that don't even attempt to break the bank. This is the Scent Bubble. Y'all stay blessed. And until next time, peace.